Hey there, what's up? My name's Ryan. In this video, we're talking about the board game Wingspan. Since it came out, Wingspan has sold more copies than pretty much any other board game, but even though it's been played by so many people, it includes something that most mass market games don't have, a solo mode. Now what is a solo mode? You see, the idea of a game being designed with a mode for just one player is actually more of a recent trend. Wingspan and games like it actually have another mode included in the box, an altered set of rules just for solo play. I mean, people have always been able to play games like Risk and chess by themselves, but it always required them to play two different characters at once, or two different players, or two different colors. That's not really what we're talking about here. Now, there's lots of reasons why solo board gaming is more popular than it used to be, but here are kind of three big reasons I want to show you. The first is that about 10 years ago, cooperative board games became really popular. These are games where all the players are working together to beat the game. This translates to solo gaming really well. These games like Pandemic were designed where all the players take turns and the game is doing something against the players and everyone's trying to beat it together. Well, solo mode, often they work like that except you cut out all the players and it's just one player trying to beat the game. Also, the negative stigma around solo board gaming has started to go away somewhat. I think we've realized that we play hours and hours and hours of computer games by yourself, really solo against the game, all the time. So I think people trying to watch things like not too much screen time, it just kind of makes sense that sometimes they turn to a board game. But the biggest recent push towards solo board gaming can really be attributed to the COVID lockdown. A lot of people found that board games were a good way to de-stress or just to kill some times when you have hours alone. So now that you kind of know what they are, how do they work? Well, I'm going to use Wingspan as an example today because I know that Wingspan has sold thousands, 10,000, probably hundreds of thousands of copies of games to players who had fun playing the game multiplayer, but were always kind of curious, like, I wonder what that is, solo mode, but they weren't quite sure how to get into it. In a normal game of Wingspan, players want to place birds into spots on the board. The birds have a point value, but there's also a few other ways of scoring as well. The birds you play often gives you a little perk or bonus for the rest of the game. You'll also be drawing more bird cards to play, laying eggs, and gathering foods out of the bird feeder. The winner is the player who has the most points on the bird cards in addition to a few of the scoring factors. So since the winner is determined by the high score, if you play solo, you have to win, right? Well, not quite. The player will be playing somewhat of a normal game in front of themselves, but the game will be playing actions in between your actions using a deck of cards to basically randomize their turn. In fact, lots of board games use this idea of a randomized opponent, either using a deck of cards or an app. In Wingspan, the actions the game can take are things like drawing birds, to take them away from you, or gaining food, maybe food that you want to take, or gaining eggs, which gives them points at the end of the game as well. Also, the actions that the game take against you will get more powerful as the game goes along, kind of simulate the whole playing against other players as they get more powerful as the game goes along. This bit of randomness of the cards being flipped over is really, really nice in a solo game because you can't be exactly sure as a player when the cards are going to be discarded. You also can't exactly know what the point total you have to get to win the game is. You kind of have to be watching what the game is doing while you're playing. Just make decisions kind of on the fly like you really would in a game against players. I'll pause here from Wingspan for just a second to mention that obviously not every board game is going to do this the exact same way. Some will just give you a victory point total. Score 50 points, you win the game. Other games will have more interaction where the game cards or the game randomness will do more to affect what you're trying to do. Some are more story driven. You have to figure this out or do this by a certain time. Some are simply kill the bad guy and you win, or build the base and you win the game. I'll also mention that for me, Wingspan is a pretty good solo mode. It does it pretty well. There are ones that I like more, but there are a lot that I like less as well. So back on track here. Now that you know what a solo mode is, I'm going to show you how to play around a Wingspan. Let's jump right in. Here's the board, and if you've never seen it before, yes, it actually is that beautiful in person as well. There's even a bird feeder. I have a couple cards off the table since there's not room for it under the camera. Now the basic setup of the game does not change for your player board, so you still get 5 birds, 1 of each food. Pick some birds to throw away, and lose a food for every bird you keep. You also are dealt 2 end of the game goal cards, which you pick 1 and discard as usual rules say. Our 5 dice are rolled, and we place 3 birds out here. And I'm going to be playing the color blue. Now for right now, I'm going to get rid of all these cards and show you how to set up for solo mode. This is the primary deck of solo mode cards. There are 10 cards in here, each with 4 different actions on them. Depending on which round of the game you're in, changes which action the card will take. So for example, if I flip this in round 1, the game will get 1 egg placed into their egg holder. But if it was round 2, I would have thrown away a food over here. Round 3 would have been 3 eggs. Round 4 would have been something different. We'll get back to these in just a second. If you look up here, we have our end of the round goals. These are goals that are basically scored at the end of every single round. So the first round, whoever has the most birds in the meadow or the field tier is going to score the most points, second most tier, third most tier. The game will place these cards up here. In every round, you'll flip this to a new side. So in round 1, they're going to have a base score that goes with each of these things. What I mean by that is this. In round 1, I'm going to score bonus points based on how many birds I get placed into my fields. Let's say I get 2 by the end of the first round. Like that. We're going to refer to this card and say in round 1, for that symbol, they get a base of 0 points. So I have 2, they have 0. I would get the first place points, and the game would get the second place points. But if you were to flip this over and look what's going to happen in round 4, for that exact same symbol, they have a base score of 3. So I would actually have to get more birds in here to compete with them at this point. This kind of makes sense because the game wants to simulate the idea the other players are getting better too. So at the beginning of the game, they don't have that many birds in the field. By the end, they would have a lot. Let's look back at this deck of cards for a second. If you were to flip over this card, in addition to the egg, it also says 1 cube. What that means is you're going to place a cube onto the round 1 marker. Now at the end of the round, not only do they have that 0, but they also have a bonus 1 right here. This adds a little randomness to the game. For example, that says add a cube, this one says take a cube off. Now there's a couple more symbols I haven't mentioned yet. This one here tells you to discard all 3 cards up here. All the face-up cards are discarded, and the game draws 1 card and keeps it face down. What's on the face of this card doesn't really matter. What this card does is basically scores them a set number of points per face-down card at the end of the game. One more thing to mention, before the game starts, you're going to give the opponent one of these endgame scoring cards. Why they are important is that when the game takes this action here, they will look at the cards up here and see if any of them fulfill this requirement. In this case, it says birds that can live only in the meadow. In this case, we actually have a bird that does that. This can only live in the meadows. We're going to take this and place it face up. The reason it's face up is this bird actually will score the points it says at the end of the game. And now we're ready to try round out. Now don't forget that I have a couple things like my food and my cards kept off the board so there's just room in the camera shot. For my first turn, I'm going to go to the very top here to play a bird. I'm going to place this bird here, the willet, which can be placed in the water. It's going to go into the pond, and I have to spend a worm or a fish. I'm going to spend the fish for that, return to the supply. And that's all I do. When you play a bird, you simply put a bird out there. But now it's time for the game to take a turn. We're going to flip over this first card, and it says, look in the bird feeder, and discarded dice. Basically, there's a little table here. It's very, very small. Basically, the first thing once you get rid of is this double one right here. So that is now gone out of the bird feeder. Back to my turn. I'm going to lay 2 eggs. Blue and green are the best colors. We're going to move that over here, and we are back to the game. So the next card of the game says, do this action here, which is the discard all 3 of these. These are all gone now. And they get the first card up next face down. So we can't know what that one is. It doesn't really matter what it is, though. That's just going to score at the end of the game for them. And then we replenish. It also says over here to remove a cube from their end of the round scoring marker, but they don't have any cubes there. So this would be a great thing to have drawn later in the round. Okay, I'm going to draw birds right here. I'm going to throw away an egg to draw an extra bird, and I'm going to take this one and a random one. Now this moves over here, just like in a normal game, and I get to take this power right here. This says roll all the dice in the bird feeder and hope that one's a fish. Nope. And that's all. Back to his turn. We'll do that action. I actually need to replenish this first. So we'll look at this card and say that, can any of these birds live only in the field here? And the answer is no. So we're just going to take a card face down and set it right there. If one could have fulfilled that requirement, we'll have to face up and we'll actually score the value on the card. Okay, I'm simply going to get some food out of here. So I'm going to go for this wheat right here. All right, back to the game. We are going to say lay an egg. And again, remove one from that card, but there's nothing to remove. So back to me, I'm going to play a bird. So I'm going to go to this very top, play a bird action. It says 2 wheat and an any one. So I have my any's, my worm, and I got 2 wheat here. Right back to the game here. We got this one here, which says to throw away something. It says the fish will be first up here. Again, there's a little table here, super hard to see. I'm going to go right here. I'm throwing away this great broad-winged hawk. By throwing that away, will allow me to take 2 food out of the bird feeder. And I'm going to take a cherry. And then just like normal gameplay, since there's only one type left in here, I can re-roll the whole bunch. And I'm going to grab a worm. Now this says gain a wheat if it's available. So I'm going to take this wheat. It says I may cash it on the card. I'm going to choose not to and keep that in my inventory. Right back to the game here. This is a discard all these cards and take the first face down one and place it right here. Then we're going to replenish this at the end of the turn. I only have 2 turns left this round, so I'm going to go here and just grab 1 worm. And then again, I take this action here, which says if there's a weed available, I can take it. So I'll just take it and put on that bird just to show you an example in a minute here. Put this back there, right back to the game. 1 egg. And there we go. Place a cube. So they have a cube is going to go right there, and that really messes me up. And for my last action, I'm going to do 1 more bird. Play a bird action one more time. Put this bird right here. 2 worms go right there, and I now have 1 here. As you probably know if you play a lot, the first round has a lot to do with putting birds down. You don't really do much cool yet. You're not really doing powerful actions. If you've never played the game before, as I go along and place birds in these spots, I'm actually going to get to take more and more powerful actions. So eventually, if I can put a bird here, I will always get 2 food. If I can put 1 here, I'll get 3 eggs. Here, I draw 2 cards. You could work your way all the way over here where you're drawing 3 food, 4 eggs, 3 cards. And the game gets 1 more turn at the end of the round. This one says reroll if there's only 1 left here. So I'm going to reroll the whole thing. And then it gives me again a little table of discarding. And the first thing it says to discard is a mouse. Now that is already the end of the first round. So we do the normal cleanup in the game where you just throw out these cards and replace them with 3 new ones. Also, we're going to see who won the first round here. So I'll show you how this works. Birds in the field. I only have a score of 1 birds in the field. So if you're playing a more than 1 player game, all the players just compare and see who have the most. In this case, we use a little table. They say that birds in the field, assume the first round, their score is 0. So that's a 0. But they also get to add in whatever cube they have right here. In this case, they have 1. So it's 1 to 1. We actually tied for first place. So both of us get to put everything on this, which means I get 4 into the game score, but also they get 4. Now to start the next round, I'm going to flip this card over because we're going to use the other side for the scoring table. This says eggs in the trees. For the next round, eggs in the tree is worth 3 points. So their base score is 3, and also you go up and they put cubes on that card. The last thing you have to do really quick is take this here, look for the single card that says throw out after the first round. This one right here is only used in the first round. Shuffle the other 10 back together and make a new pile. You'll continue for 3 more rounds. Each round gains slightly shorter because one of your cubes are used for this marker right here. At the end of all 4 rounds, you will score as usual. The point value you see on the birds here, also add up any eggs and any food there. Also ended the round scoring whatever you would have done for the second, third, and fourth all together. And also this card you took at the very beginning of the game that gives you endgame scoring. The game will score on cards in this pile here primarily. All the face down cards have a set value of 3, 4, or 5 depending on your difficulty level. Now it didn't happen for us. If any of these cards would have been taken face up like this, as you go through the pile at the end, face up cards actually score the value you see on them, so this would be worth 6. The game also scores for eggs and end of the round scoring. And that's a round of Wingspan for you. Now you basically do the same thing 3 more times, with each round actually it's a little more interesting because you hold on to the food you have in your hand and cards, and more importantly, the birds you've already played stay there from round to round. You're going to get more and more powerful, more and more bonuses as the game goes along. At the end of 4 rounds, you see who has a higher score, you based on normal rules from the multiplayer game, or the game which has their own kind of scoring system which we kind of got into during the play. If you have any questions about Wingspan solo mode, ask in the comment section down below, or just solo gaming in general. I'll be happy to chat with you. Also, I haven't recorded a video of this for the channel, so seeing this game solo mode, solo playthrough on the channel, if it interests you, let me know and I'll get to work on that. And of course, a great way to let me know you're interested in seeing more videos is hitting the like button down below and subscribing to the channel.